Cool. All right. For anyone that hasn't talked yet, please feel just like leave a little bit in the chat and I'll take a look at it. But I think we should go ahead and just jump into everything. So for anyone that's just joining in the group now, in the 2024 session resources, I've got some links in there for the Zoom, for the slides we're going to look at. And then also we're going to use, I'm going to recommend we use a tool called runcomfy.com today. If you have installed ComfyUI before, you're more than welcome to use whatever local version you have. I think the intro to Comfy session that's later this week will probably go more into installation. In general, like, and I'll talk about this a little bit, but like installing Comfy isn't the best if you're just on a laptop because you really need a GPU, especially for video. You really need a GPU to be able to do a lot of this stuff. So the reason we're going to use runcomfy is it basically like installs all that stuff for us, and it uses a GPU on the back end. So it's going to save us a lot of time in terms of installing stuff as well as running things. And it's pretty affordable. Like for this session, if you add like $3 or $4 of credits, you'll be fine for this 2-hour session. The minimum is $10. Okay. So then there is a, sorry, go ahead. Yeah. It is pay to use. There's a free trial. I think there's a certain amount of credits when you first use it. And I think that'll give you what they call a medium-sized GPU, which will probably be fine for this, for what we're going to do. Your generations might be a little bit, like it might just be a little bit slower. And some of the maybe crazier workflows we might look at the end of the session might not work. But the reality is GPUs are expensive. So, you know, it's worth it, honestly, for that cost. Yeah. It's just a credit. It's a credit base. So you can sign up and pay credits, pay per use. There is a pro subscription feature as well that gives you access to things that honestly aren't really that worth it. I think it gives you a discount on your pay per hour or whatever. Yeah. Cool. All right. I'm just gonna close the chat just because it's a little crazy to sort of watch everything here. So I just want to talk, I think what we'll do is I'll just talk a little about what Comfy is for maybe the next 10, 15 minutes. And then we'll actually start to open up and play with it a little bit. Because it's helpful to understand a little bit of the context of Comfy before you come and do it. Because when you first come into it, it's just like chaos. Like you're just like, there's shit everywhere. How do I manage all this stuff? And I think it's easier if we talk a little about what's actually happening. And then we'll go through some really, really basic flows. And then we'll sort of build up as we go through it. So Comfy is a GUI, a lot like Touch Designer. It's a node-based GUI, and it sits atop a pipeline based on a thing called Stable Diffusion. And Stable Diffusion is one of many, many different types of generative models. Stable Diffusion really started because of this company called Stability. And in fact, this is already out of date. When I wrote these slides on Saturday, the person who made Comfy worked at Stability, but yesterday he resigned. But basically, because Stability is a company that makes open source tools that also makes these models, as the models roll out, Comfy got all that stuff really soon before anyone else did. Basically, they were able to beta test internally and they would launch it the day that these tools were available to people. And that's true. Stability just released a brand new model called SD3, and Comfy had like the first access to it and released the first Comfy plugins and workflows for it. So I honestly don't think that's going to change. Stability is kind of like a little bit of chaos right now. Everyone's leaving for many reasons. But the nice thing about Comfy is it's still very open source. And in fact, like because of the community-based system, there's a ton of materials that exist outside of the Stability world that are being built into Comfy. That's with a good and bad side of things. I sent this link out to anyone that had RSVP'd as of last night at 5 p.m. or whatever. I sent out this link. We're not going to talk too much about how diffusion models work, in part just because that's about an hour-long lecture in and of itself. If you are interested in learning about how diffusion models work, I have a video that sort of talks about how diffusion models work. And you're welcome to watch that. Again, it's linked to from the slides here. It won't really matter too much for what we're going to do today. The only thing we're going to talk about that kind of relates to how diffusion models work is we'll talk about steps and the basic diffusing process and how steps work there. But I'll cover that and I'll explain a little bit of how that all works. And it won't be super important. But if you are interested in understanding like the ins and outs of diffusion models, I would definitely recommend checking out this video. Stability is the private company that makes diffusion models, and they made Stable Diffusion. Yeah, but because Stability is also an open source company, they basically released everything, and then the community has really built a lot of stuff on top of these models. So it's kind of a weird confluence of things, because also the Stability people tend to hire the people that make open source tools. Like they find out who the best people are and bring them into the company. So it's this weird kind of like in and out system of how all these things work. But the important thing to know is that we're going to use Stable Diffusion for all of this. Diffusion models are not exclusive to Stable Diffusion, right? So if you've used DALL-E, if you use Midjourney, those are also diffusion models. They are private and closed source diffusion models made by those companies. So Stable Diffusion is just one version of a diffusion model, and it happens to be the most popular open source version right now.
ComfyUI is an open source framework. runcomfy is a startup built on that.
Exactly. Yes. Yep. Yep. So Comfy, I know some people are talking about touch designer, that sort of thing. ComfyUI is really sort of a similar paradigm in that it's a node editor. So you plug in a block. A block is essentially a function. And then there are inputs and outputs to that block. And we'll go through this at a very basic level. We'll start and build a very basic Comfy model, Comfy workflow using these blocks. And we'll sort of learn what each of these sort of flows is within the system. The important thing to remember is, and we'll see this, I've got a slide that's the next thing about like, just like with Touch Designer, only certain things can plug into each other. There's sort of a requirement. In ComfyUI, it's color-based, so you'll be able to tell what you can plug in and plug out based on the colors. But there are sort of three important flows to keep in mind, and we'll talk about this a lot more detail as we go through things. There's an image flow, meaning you connect images to each other. Usually that's like a output of an image from the model, and you want to preview it in Comfy. So you would connect the image output from your diffusion system to a preview node that allows you to view it. The other one is models. So as I mentioned, Stable Diffusion is a model. There are many different types of Stable Diffusion models, which we'll see in just a minute, because people have gone and created their own versions of them. But on top of that, there are also different types of models. There is what we call the base model. There's what we call LoRa's, and there's what we call animation models, and they all kind of flow together. And I'll talk about this exact flow chain. You don't need to understand exactly what that means just yet, but I'll talk about that when we start to build up our first workflow. And lastly, there's a flow called conditioning. Conditioning, if you've done text prompting, that's what conditioning is. So text prompting basically pushes or conditions the model to try to generate in a certain way. And there are different types of conditioning, right? There is using text prompting. There are also things we'll look at which will basically control the shape of the outputs. So if you use stuff like OpenPose or other generators that allow you to track body positions, there are ways to use those as conditioning inputs into your model as well. None of this might make sense just yet. I promise it will by the end of this session, or at least I hope it will by the end of the session. But essentially what this looks like is this. So this is our first example of what a Comfy workflow looks like. So as I mentioned, we're going to load in a model. In this case, in this example, your name is V1.5 pruned EMA only. Doesn't matter what any of that means. So what that means is this is an SD model named 1.5. We're going to look, there's a million models we can use here. And the nice thing about runcomfy is that they've included like 100 of the most popular models. So it's kind of nice we can just start with that. You'll see that coming out of here, there are models, there are clips, and there's a thing called VAE. We're going to skip the VAE for now. But the model is what basically the model flow, right? And you'll see that that plugs into this other purple thing called the K-sampler. I'll talk about the K-sampler more when we get into actually building a flow. But that purple line is our model flow. And when we look at generative animation, we'll actually add in some additional models in order to generate animations. So just keep in mind that purple can only connect to purple. Then we've got our yellow system here, which I'm never really sure why it changes from yellow to orange, but it is what is called our conditioning model or our conditioning flow. And you'll see that yellow needs to plug into yellow, and then it becomes orange, and that plugs into orange. And you'll see when it turns into orange, it becomes conditioning. This is basically how we do text prompting, right? So this is a positive text prompt, meaning this is what we want to see in the image. And this is a negative text prompt, meaning this is what we don't want to see in the image. And you'll see that we create these two, we add in some text, and then those get plugged into our positive and negative conditioning models. If this doesn't make any sense immediately, that's okay. We're going to walk through it. Go ahead. Yeah. Kind of. Yes. We'll talk about that in just a minute, but yes, kind of. Oh no, that's probably a typo. Yeah.
What's the pink line?
The pink line is this one, the one at the bottom. That's our latent. I'll talk about that in just a minute, but essentially that determines, if you'll see the width and the height are 512, that is going to be our size for our image, our output image. So I'll talk about this in just a minute. But yeah, there's also this latent image, which 9 times out of 10 doesn't really do much beyond this, this, and this. But you'll kind of just see that there are some common patterns here. But I'll talk about those things when we get into actually building our first workflow.
Is there two orange like George has the last one?
Yes, there is. And this is kind of the challenge of Comfy, is it going to be hard to track these nodes. There is a orange node from here that plugs into what's called the negative conditioner. And then there is the other one up here that it plugs into the positive. But you will notice also here, you can add multiple nodes. You can have nodes coming from more than one place, right? So you can have a clip node that comes into both a positive and a negative. But in general, you can't plug in, like, I actually don't think you could plug in this directly into the positive because they are different colors. I think you would have to have this node here in the middle to actually convert them into a conditioner.
I don't know, like, for example, does yellow always mean a condition?
Yes, that is another thing, is colors do not change. They're always the same meaning, meaning purple is always going to be purple throughout the entire flow. The red color is always going to be red. Then you will see here, this node changes the colors, right? So it needs to plug in a yellow, but its output is an orange.
And what's the meaning of the red line of VAE?
I'll cover that in just a minute. It kind of plugs in all the way at the end, which I kind of cropped out. One of the challenges with Comfy is that you can zoom out and see this like crazy like spaghetti network, but then you want to zoom in and actually understand it. So just to zoom in, I wanted to show this so we could people understand like sort of how these things connect. But I will cover how VAEs work when we actually build our first workflow.
And the clip, I don't know why you divide the clip to two parts and connect them to positive and negative. What is the meaning of the positive and negative?
Yeah, so this is actually a thing that most other generative models don't necessarily include in their UI. Clip can take, or this text prompting, most text prompt tools you're going to use only have a positive, meaning you put in what you want to see in the image. But it's actually much more powerful if you also include what's called a negative prompt, which is what you don't want to see in the image. So if you've ever used like a basic generative tool and you like put in a prompt and you get something out and you're like, that's not what I meant. A nice way to actually clean up your prompt or to like get better images is to include a negative. And a negative is basically what you don't want to see in the image. So see here, we're saying don't include text, don't include watermarks. That's a pretty common one. Another thing we're going to use in this class is NSFW or nude, because when we generate images, a lot of times these models will generate nude people, and I would prefer we not do that for this class. So I'm going to include those in my default as well. So you basically split these because you want to include a positive and a negative. In most cases, what you're going to do is you're going to build on the positive conditioning, and the negative will only be this text negative.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. Cool. So let's talk a little bit about the positives or the good things about ComfyUI. As I mentioned, it is open source, which means there's a lot of development that happens very quickly with these tools. As I mentioned, a new version of Stable Diffusion just came out, and people are already building new tools and new features on top of it, like the day it came out. So that's pretty cool. It is free-ish. You know, like You can install this on your local machine, and it more or less will run for free. The downside of that is you do generally need a GPU, and GPUs cost a lot of money. So what most people actually end up doing is using something like runcomfy or another hosted solution that has access to a GPU. There are lots of ways to run Comfy. I think someone said they use Colab. There are ways to run like Comfy through Colab. But for a couple other reasons, I've chosen to use runcomfy just for the session. Yes, you can use your own GPU as well. Yep. Yeah. I just assume most people don't have a $2,000 GPU that they're just hanging out with. So for this class, it's easier to use like something that has a hosted GPU system. What I find most people like about this tool is that it is a GUI, meaning once you understand how it works, it's pretty easy to use. You can also like sort of download other people's workflows, which is really nice. So people who are like not coders and kind of afraid of seeing code and that sort of thing, it's a nice experience once you get to learn how to use it. There are a ton of extensions for this thing, like a crazy amount of extensions. Recently, I've seen a couple people building like processing pipelines on top of these things. So if you're a processing person, you actually generate a little processing sketch and have that influence your output through the generative system, which is pretty cool. But there are a ton of extensions. The other cool thing about this, and we'll look at this later today, is that these workflows, which are like basically your little pipeline, your spaghetti string system, those are downloadable and shareable. So once we've got a cool workflow we like, we can then save that and then share that with other people, and they can load that into their Comfy and use the same thing. So actually what a lot of people do with Comfy is most people I meet who use Comfy don't even know how Comfy works. They just download other people's workflows and like kind of cross their fingers and hope that it runs correctly. And 9 times out of 10, it does. For this class, I'm going to show you a little bit of how Comfy works, so you at least understand the basics. And then we will download some open source workflows and actually work through those. But that's a really powerful tool of this. Yeah, go ahead.
Is automatic 1111 the same thing as same type of thing as ComfyUI?
Yeah, it's just a different GUI. So automatic 1111 is more like it's more just like it's like a Gradio UI, right? So it's like there's, tabs and that sort of thing, whereas Comfy is more of this node-based system. But under the hood, they're more or less the same thing. And as I mentioned, this will run on any computer. If you're generating just images, using the Mac version or like a Windows version without a GPU generally work fine. Your image generation will be much, much, much slower. And the problem is when we do video, when you need to create multiple frames over and over and over again, that slow time means it might take hours to generate a video on a Mac. So yeah, so no one wants to do that. That's why we're going to use a system that has a hosted GPU. The downsides of Comfy, which is pretty much what anyone that's used Comfy once or twice will hard to tell you, it's really hard to get started with these things. It's confusing. Often because of the extensions, there's just so much to install before you get started. And things are not always as well documented as they should be. In fact, quite often they're not documented very well at all. So, I think this session, I think some of the other intro sessions that are going to happen this week are going to help people sort of get started. Because the hardest thing is just getting started. Once you've got an idea of how it all works and like how you can install custom nodes and other things, like it saves you, like it becomes much, much easier, but the learning curve is steep. So hopefully with this session and some of the other sessions this week, people will get a better sense of how to use things. As I mentioned, it doesn't work well on Macs. If you just want to generate images and you don't mind it taking 20 minutes to generate an image for you on your Mac, then it's fine. But that sucks for most people. Also, I should mention, as with all open source tools, there are some security concerns. In general, don't install custom nodes if you don't know what they're doing. Just this week, it turned out someone had built a custom node that people were installing that was basically like going in and stealing all their passwords. So be careful.
So is the concern in Mac only or just in general?
In general. So someone built like a custom node and then started to promote it on all the Comfy channels, and people were installing it, and it was basically like hacking into your computer and stealing all your passwords. People caught it very quickly, so that was good. But in general, don't install stuff if you don't know what you're installing. I will try to tell you what is good to install and what is not. But it can be a little bit of a concern. So, just keep that in mind.
When you say it doesn't work well on Macs, is it because of the hardware, like
Yeah,
underlying?
it's a hardware system. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. People are trying to solve that with like the new M4 chips and that sort of thing, but it's still basically NVIDIA has like a grasp on the market, and the way NVIDIA chips work is everyone builds to work off that system. So it's the GPUs that are available through Macs are poor, basically. Yeah.
Like a security versus like a node or?
No, a shared workflow requires a node. So if there's a shared workflow that uses an insecure node, you would need to install that node before you could actually like run that, before you could run into issues. So a workflow is just basically a JSON file that says, hey, here are the nodes you need to install, and here are the models I need to look for. You then need to go actually do that work and install those things. And until you install those things, there's no security risk. Is there a question?
Yeah. I
Go
had
ahead.
a question just
Yeah.
about the nodes. So you can download nodes that basically won't cause security concerns if you're downloading other people's workflows. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, you need to install the nodes. The nodes are the security risk. So workflow, you can just open workflow and it's going to say, hey, you need to install these nodes. And you would need to actually go say, yes, I want to install those. So honestly, I maybe should have even skipped this thing. There has been one node that has been a security problem. That's it. And people caught it very quickly. But it is a potential problem or a potential risk. I would say most workflows you find are from communities where people have supported them and are good for them. Anything you are concerned about, you should ask. I've got some links to like some very well reputable workflow places. You can trust those people. You can't trust other people, but like, most 99 out of 100 times you're gonna be fine. I just want to bring it up as like a single, like in the news, there has been a concern about this. But in general, it's been fine. So I've got a link here of where to find workflows. We'll come back to this sort of in the later session of the class. There are 1,000 upon thousands of workflows these days. And in fact, like I said, most people don't really know how to build their own workflows. They just go and download someone else's and kind of like futz around until it works. And that's a fine way to work. I don't think it is really the most beneficial. Like you feel like you're confused the entire time. So here are some good places where you can download workflows. But we'll come back to this. We'll actually download one of the Eden workflows and look at how to install it. One of the biggest challenges with most Comfy systems is when you install someone else's workflow, it requires about 1,000 custom nodes. And those custom nodes take time to install. You need to figure out how to install them, like that sort of thing. So in the second half of this session, I'm going to try to sort of walk through how to update and install custom nodes. The nice thing about runcomfy is that it installs most of the popular nodes already. If you were to build your own local system, you would spend about 4 or 5 hours just installing nodes that you need to install just to get started. runcomfy already has all that stuff installed for you, meaning I would say 75% of the workflows you're going to install and want to run right out of the box with runcomfy without having to worry about it. That's kind of why I wanted to do that for the session, because otherwise we'd be spending our 2 hours just installing stuff. So we're going to make some workflows in this workshop, and I will add links to those here once we're done. So you can come back to these slides. They're linked to in our Slack channel. You can come back to those and download those workflows. I'll actually probably upload them to Slack as we make them, just so if people like fall behind or want to learn stuff, we can sort of like use those as well. And I'll show how to load workflows and save workflows, that sort of thing as well. Any questions before we jump into runcomfy? Cool. Okay, let's get started. So as I mentioned, we're going to use runcomfy for this system for today. If you haven't yet, go to runcomfy.com and just create an account. I think I'm going to cross my fingers and hope that the free trial that everyone gets, your credits that you get, will work for this. I think it will, at least for our first couple workflows. Because as you said, there's a $10 minimum to add money. I personally think it's worth it if you do want to add $10 to your account. Like we'll burn through maybe $4 or $5 today in our session, and then maybe you can use the rest of the sessions for the intro class that's happening later this week or just playing around with other things. I also have a pro account, which isn't really worth it, but it gives me a little bit more benefit. I think the pro account is $30 a month. And you'll see there's some workflows here. The other nice thing about runcomfy is they have some predefined workflows. So there's something you just want to do and you don't want to go and find a workflow or anything. They've got stuff installed, but most of the predefined workflows require a pro account. You'll see it here. I don't think it's really worth it, to be honest. I just do it because it saves me a little bit of money and I can help people quicker. Okay, so once you've gone in and created an account with runcomfy, you should come to a page that looks like this. And there's a button here that says launch machine, right? Is that true? Everyone sees that? Okay, great. Thank you. When you click launch machine, I think most of you will see you're only able to launch a medium. Is that right? Cool. Okay. So for most of you, launching a medium is going to be fine. This gives us what's called 16 gigabytes of VRAM, which I think will be fine for our session. What we'll do is we'll keep our videos small and we'll keep our generations short, and that should be enough for this. But you'll see, like, I have access to a lot more GPUs. Because I have pro, I have a slight discount on my hourly rates, et cetera, whatever. So for those of you that have the free trial, I think you're just going to click medium and it's going to give you, I think, maybe like an hour of time. Is that right? Someone, what is it? 15 minutes. That's it. Shit, they changed that. Okay. All right, we're going to see how this goes. It might actually make sense then to add $10 of money to your account because I think we need more than 15 minutes for this. So if you guys want to spend a couple minutes just doing that, that might be good. I'm going to run a large instance, which just gives me a little bit of a bigger VRAM, and it means my stuff's going to run a little bit faster. That's fine because I'll probably also be running stuff faster and then helping everyone sort of do their thing. So if you want to add a little bit of budget to your account, like $10, like that's probably smart. And it'll give you a little bit more than 15 minutes to run. Go ahead. You'll still need to launch a thing. Yeah, you'll still need to launch your machine. Yep. Yeah, let's hit the button now. Yeah, so because this is actually, I should say, launching isn't going to immediately launch a computer for you. It's going to take you to your next step. So I'm going to launch a large and we'll see what happens next here. You'll see that then you're asked to select your release. Just select the current release. There's a whole reason why they have all these old releases, but it's not worth worrying about. So we'll select current release. We'll hit next. And then you've got this thing that says auto stop timer. This allows you to set your budget. Basically, let's say sorry, go ahead.
The price, is it for the video that we're trying to make so we can make up until a 15-minute video, or is it the 15-minute time of using the machine?
Using runcomfy, yes. So it is using the system, yes, not how long your video generation is. Yep.
That's my question, is if it is processing time or our time using it?
It's your time using runcomfy. So as long as you have the session open, it is a session time, not not generation time. Yeah. Yeah.
That counts towards the.
Yes. Yes.
From here.
Yes. Yeah. So we're going to set an auto stop timer here, which will basically mean if we walk away from our computer and forget about it, it'll turn off after a certain amount of time. No, I'll talk about that in a second, but yeah. Sorry, what was your question, John?
So I'm just trying to figure out which one you click.
Oh, okay. Click, let's have you click medium. So click launch under medium. Yep.
In this one, right?
Yes, correct. Yep. And then click next. Okay. Just so I can check in, has everyone either added credits and or hit their free trial setup? And you're at a page that looks maybe like this. Okay, cool.
If we added money to the machine.
Yeah, it's fine. Yeah.
Can I ask why in my page I just found the pro selection is nearly $30, and
Oh, just skip that. I think there's a way to skip that. You don't need the pro plan. Sorry, it's like all these companies are trying to upsell you to the most expensive thing, right? Skip the pro plan if it asks for you to do that.
Yeah, and I forgot where can I click click?
I think you'll want to click either the medium or large GPU.
Oh, yeah.
Let me X out of this and let's start over again. So,
Oh, yeah. Okay. Okay, I found it. Thank you.
cool. So I think Zhang was showing me his screen. So if you have given money or put some credits in, then you'll see a thing that either at the top that probably says either hobby or pro. You'll be in the hobby section, and then you'll want to click either medium or large. Large is going to be fast and you'll be able to follow along, but it's obviously a little bit more expensive. Medium is probably fine for today. Well, we've got till 1 today, so maybe just add a little bit of time to go to 1 o'clock. So add 15 minutes. So 1 minute.
Launch
Yeah.
machine, medium, and then I don't have what other people.
Cool, that's fine. I'll get to that in a second. So yeah, so if you click large, you should then, or large or medium, you should see this like select your version. Just select current release. Is there a scroll down below there?
She's not getting the next button.
Can you zoom out a little bit or like make your screen a little bit smaller? There you go. Cool, no worries. Okay, so has everyone hit this screen now? Okay, cool. So as I mentioned, we've got till 1 today. So let's just let's bring this up to 1 hour, 15 minutes. You'll see that it'll say like, hey, here's how much you're going to spend. So if you're on a large machine like me, you're going to spend $2. Believe me, that's worth it compared to other systems. So a GPU you need in order to run this locally costs about $2,000. And that's being generous. No, you actually need to buy a physical GPU to run one of these things. So trust me, unless you're going to run 1,000 hours of runcomfy, it's worth it just to pay for this system. And sorry, I guess for some of you, it might be a little bit more because you're not on the pro plan. So it might be like $2.50 or something. I am, yes. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I'll make sure everyone has a recording after because I know some of this you'll need to follow along again later. Okay. Okay, cool. So everyone is at this point. So let's go ahead and hit launch. At this point, this means you will be quote unquote paying for your machine now. So we'll hit launch. And it's going to take about 3 to 5 minutes to get this set up. Basically, it spins up a little GPU for you on the back end. It creates a little like system for you of where you can keep all your files, that sort of thing. There's a button down here that says play a sound when the machine is ready. I have like advanced ADHD, so I need a little button that dings when I like disappear and do something else for a couple minutes. So you can turn that on if you just want a reminder. So at this point, we're just going to wait a couple minutes. Yeah.
If we wanted to, I mean, I don't want to do this.
Yeah.
If we wanted to run this on our computer, how do we do it? Like, where is the option to say, I don't want to use your GPU, I want to use my own?
So with runcomfy, there is no option for that. You would need to go through the process of locally installing Comfy. If we go to, let's go to our system here and we go to ComfyUI. There are install instructions here on how to install Comfy. So there are installation instructions. They actually have removed the Mac instructions because they don't really recommend using a Mac for this. I've included, if you signed up, if you RSVP'd for the session as of like 5 p.m. yesterday, I sent an email with some links to other installation tutorials. I'll add those again in our Slack channel in just a minute. There is a way to install stuff on Mac, but it's a crazy process. This thing called Pinocchio. It's in general, I'm just saying, don't install it on your Mac. It's not worth it. Unless you are being as cheap as humanly possible, it is not worth installing on a Mac. Basically, is what I'm telling you. I'm going to tell you everything you need to know as we go through it. Yeah. No, there's no license or anything you have to worry about there. Yeah. Yeah.
What is do you use this primarily, or do you use it running locally on?
I have a Linux machine at home that I run everything off of. Back in the day, you couldn't even run this stuff on Windows. So a couple years ago, I built my own Linux box with a bunch of GPUs. So that is how I do most of my work. Yeah. I have a crazy number of GPUs and some very expensive ones as well. Yeah. This is basically my job. So yeah. Language models now can be run on CPUs pretty easily. It would depend on your CUDA version. I think maybe like CUDA 10 could be run. But yeah, I don't know. So as I mentioned, there are installation instructions here. If you do have a Windows machine or a Linux machine with a GPU, it's fairly easy to install this stuff, assuming you've installed Python tools before, which I guess is not always the most common thing, but yeah, in general, I would say, honestly, runcomfy, and there are other companies like this. There's another one called Run Diffusion. There's a bunch of companies that are basically doing this because GPUs are so expensive, it's easier to just rent someone's for a couple hours. So there are a lot of companies that are good for this. I like runcomfy because it's going to be installed with all the nodes we need, which is half the headache. So in that case, it's probably better to just use runcomfy. Like I said, I'm teaching a class on, there we go, there's my ding. I'm teaching a class on ComfyUI starting in July. That's linked to in the slides. If you want to take that class, we'll do everything. I've got a 2-hour session today, so I'm trying to like do as much as possible, but that's like a 15-hour class that'll cover everything. So yeah.
Is it also?
Yeah, we'll probably use runcomfy in that class just because again, it's gonna be easier. I'll give recommendations on how to install other things if people want it, but especially for Macs, it's just not worth trying to install anything else. Okay, so Comfy is now up and running here for us. And it loads with this predefined workflow. This predefined workflow is basically just an image generation tool. So let's talk about a little bit about our workspace here. This is specific to Comfy or runcomfy.com, but they've got this little left-hand panel here, which is where all of our files live. For the start of our class, we don't need to worry about this. What we're actually going to do is we're going to hit this little X up here where it says folder. And that's going to hide that thing for us, which is great because we don't really need it and it takes up a lot of our space. So this is our main pipeline here. And what we're going to do in just a minute is we're going to clear this out completely and rebuild this from scratch. But let's just make sure everything's working the way we expect it to. If we come over here and we hit Q prompt, this is going to load our first workflow and it's going to generate an image for us. The Q prompt button over here on the left or on the right, sorry. Click that once. And after, I don't know, 10, 15 seconds, we should see an image here. There's a little X icon up here at the top right, the little folder icon with the X. Click that once, and that should hide that panel. Yeah, I can see it's still loading for some people, so I'm not gonna rush us just yet. I'll wait till everybody's loaded up here. But maybe while we wait for this to load, let me talk a little about what's going on here. So when we hit Q prompts, you might have noticed that some of our nodes here turned green. I'll hit this again and this will be a little bit faster this time. So watch very closely. When I hit Q prompt, our load checkpoint is going to turn green, and then other things will turn green as we flow through this workflow. In fact, even skip this. So what is happening here is a really nice thing about Comfy is that it caches stuff. So what's basically happening here is we're loading our model. So that the first time we do that, it's going to take a long time because models are huge. They're like 3 or 4 gigabytes worth of files. So while that's green, it's basically loading that checkpoint. It's loading the model into our system. Then it runs through our positive and negative prompts. And then it passes that to the case sampler, which is basically what does all the work for us. This is what's going to generate our image. And then we do what's called decoding of our image, and then we save the image or we preview the image. So this workflow is the most basic workflow you can have in Comfy. And let's try one more thing here. So what I'm going to do down here at the bottom is we were asking about latent or VAEs. We can change the size of this. So let's say I want to make my image wider. So let's double click on the width, or actually just single click on the width. And let's change this to 768 and then hit OK. And now when I run this again, my output is rectangular.
This is a really weird question. The first time I hit it, I generated the same image you see.
Yep.
Is that normal?
That is quite normal. Yeah. Yeah.
What's the reason for that?
The seed value. So it's the exact same seed. So when Comfy loads on everyone's run Comfy, it starts with the exact same seed. Yep. Yep. Yeah, go ahead. What do you mean by you can't read anything?
It's just like stopped.
Oh, interesting. At the top, do you see a stop button? Can you hit refresh on your browser window and see if that fixes anything?
Where can I click to run it?
The Q prompt button, this one here. Yeah, of course, come on up. You're still waiting there, huh?
Yeah.
Huh, okay. All right, interesting. So if you just come over here and hit refresh. It actually looks like a browser issue because it doesn't like your. Okay.
I go back here and then we open it.
Possibly. Oh no, hold on. Okay. So yeah, you're fine. I think I'm just there we go. Okay, yeah, you're fine. So I think the thing is, whatever for whatever reason, your scroll depth is a little bit different than mine. So you might just have to zoom in, and zooming in is just moving in and out.
But where's the rest of where's Q prompt and stuff?
Yeah, that's a good question. Sorry, and also I'm not like a Windows person, so I
That's
don't
fine.
know. Yeah, that's a great question. One thing I think is if you're like zoomed into the window too far. Is there a way to like zoom in and out on the just on the Chrome?
On the whole.
Yeah. Control plus. I don't think it's that. Huh, weird. Okay.
Can I close it and then come back here, or is that
I
gonna?
think so. Let's hit X here. And then go to My Machines. And then go to stop. And then just restart it. And let's see if that works. If not, maybe you and I can hang out afterward and try to figure this out.
Okay.
Cool.
Thank you.
Yeah, and then hit OK.
Ah.
And then launch. Yeah. And let's just run through this process all over again and see if that works for you. Cool. Okay.
Thank you.
You're still not going there, huh?
Should I click refresh?
Yeah, try to refresh. Yeah, see if anything happens. See if anything changes there.
I'm sorry. How do you run this again?
Button over here that says Q prompt. If you click that once, that'll run everything.
Oh, okay.
Oh, okay. So hit X there at the X at the top right. Top, yeah, click that, and then go to see what it says My Machines. Okay, you're still setting up. So let's just give us a minute and we'll see if that changes. There's a very high likelihood that all of us using a media machine in this room is like using all of their GPUs. I don't know how big of a company runcomfy is. It's possible that we are all overusing their servers. It's very possible. That sounds crazy, but it is very possible. Yeah.
Every time your friend, you get it.
Yep.
You have all the settings.
Yep. That is because of the seed value here. See how the seed value says control after generate, it says randomize. So every time we click this button, it's going to randomize this number. Has everyone in here used processing before? Like, so you know how there's a random seed value in processing, and random seeds are random but not random, right? Like that's basically what's happening here. So if all of us were to put in the exact same seed value right now, like we were all put in 1 and hit OK, and then we were hit Q prompts, we would all get the exact same image out, assuming our width and height were the same as well. Yeah. But you also put in 1 and then we hit Q prompt, and now our number is different because of this randomization system. Yeah. Cool.
Also, can we change the parameter and try to change them?
Yeah, please.
Okay.
All right, I scared enough people off. We're good to go here. All right. If you haven't yet got Comfy up and running, I'm sorry. Let's try to let's hang out after class, after the session, and I'll try and get stuff running for people. There's different things going on that might be affecting that, but just because I know we only have an hour left, I want to quickly run through some of the building of things. So at this point, hopefully everyone at least was able to generate image using the Q prompt button, right? If you're following along, you're able to do that. Cool. Okay, great. So let's go ahead and over here, we're going to hit clear. On the right-hand side, we're going to hit clear. And it's going to say, are you sure you want to do this? That sounds crazy. And you're going to say, yes, I want to do that. And now we've got nothing here, right? So now we're going to build our own pipeline, and we're going to build a video pipeline for us here. All right. So the way Comfy works is if you double click, you'll get this little search thing. So everybody double click, and we're going to type in K sampler. You can just type in KSA, and you'll get this little thing pop up here. And we're going to click on that. And that is our K sampler. Basically, the way you always need a K sampler. Like I've never seen a workflow that doesn't include a K sampler. This is actually what does all of our diffusion model process. Yeah, of course. Yeah. So double click here in the search and type in KSA. And you should get a thing that says K sampler. You're going to click that, and that's going to add a K sampler node. Of course, yep. You will see here that the inputs to our K sampler are a model, a positive and negative conditioner, and a latent image. And your output is a latent image. So let's work from this section out and build our system here. So the first thing we need is a model. The nice thing you can do is you can always drag out. So if you click on your little node here and drag this out, it's going to say, and just like unclick or declick, you'll see add node. And you'll click this thing and it's kind of crazy. You don't really want that. The other thing you can do is if you click on the node and then drag out, and at least on a Mac, it's Shift Option and unclick, you'll see that it then pulls up your search bar, and it also like gives you the best option from this. So we can do this 2 ways. We can either do that whole drag, Shift Option, unclick thing, or we can just double click over here and hit search, and we're going to do load checkpoint. So if you type in load, you'll see checkpoint, click on load checkpoint, and that gives us our model here. These are the base models we're going to use. And as I mentioned, runcomfy allows us to, like, it comes pre-installed with like 100 of these. So if we click on this here, in this little section here, you'll see that we now get a list of all of the models that came pre-installed on Comfy. This is awesome. I mean, this is super helpful because just to install all of this alone would probably take us a couple hours. So it coming pre-installed with Comfy is really, really nice. For this class, we're going to use a special model called LCM models. I don't want to get too deep into it, but the reason we want to use an LCM model is that they run much faster than traditional models. So in our filter list here, if we just clicked in that middle, we should see a filter list, and we're just going to type in LCM. You'll see that that reduces us down to only one model option. So we're going to then click on that model option. It's called Photon LCM V10.10 Safe Tensors. Everyone has that? Cool. So now we need to plug this in, right? So the way to plug this in is we're going to click on our little circle here next to model, and we're going to plug this in over here. So just drag from here over to here, and we're plugged in. So from purple to purple. Go ahead, yeah. There's no, yeah, it's just going to automatically save it. Yep. Okay, so now I've got our model hooked up. Now we need to add our text prompting, right? So for this, we're going to double click again here in the middle, and we're going to type in TXT. And you'll see there is clip text encode prompt. That's what we want to choose. So the second one. And we've got two of these here. And we're actually just we're gonna copy and paste. So either Command C, Command V, or what you could do is you could just double click again and type in text. Yep. And what we're going to do is we're going to drag our clip from our load checkpoint. So this yellow dot here, we're going to drag one up to this one and one down to this one. And what I also like to do is I like to color code these. So we're going to color code this top one. We're going to right click on the node itself, and you're going to come down to colors, and then you're going to click the little arrow icon next to it. And we're going to make the top one green. And we're going to do this again for the bottom one. So we'll right click on it, colors. We'll make this one red. Everyone at this point? Okay.
How did you add the first case sampler node again?
Just double click on
double
the Comfy space and then just type in KSA and it'll pop up. So again, to change colors, you right click on the node. So click on the node and then right click, and then you'll come down to colors. And you'll click our little arrow next to the colors, and then you'll be able to select your color. Like control click. You might have to select the node first. Yeah, so, oh, I see what you're saying. Can you two-finger press on your keyboard? Like press with two fingers? Does that pull up? Yeah. So you're gonna need colors and then color. If you don't like, color coding isn't super important, so we'll be fine here. Yeah. Okay. So we now have two different clipped nodes. We're gonna plug our conditioning from the top one into the positive of the K sampler. And we're going to connect our bottom one to the negative. So the top one, our output, our conditioning goes to positive. In the bottom one, our conditioning goes to the negative of the K sampler. So let's put in a text prompt here. So my go-to is always a dog riding a dolphin. So this is what we want to see in the image. What we don't want to see in the image is text, watermark, let's say nude, NSFW. You're welcome to put in whatever you want. If you want to generate that image, it's totally fine. So now I've got our prompt in here. So this is what it's going to feed into our case sampler. This is what's going to do the work for us. Next, we need to tell the model or the case sampler what size image we want. So we need to add that using a latent image. So what we're going to do is we're going to double click in our outside of any of the nodes, double click again in the space, and we're going to type in empty. And we want an empty latent image. Here, let me do this a little bit higher so everyone can see it. Empty, if I can spell right, empty. So an empty latent image. So click on this and then drag this down to about here. And you'll see there's no input here. There is no input for this because it is only an empty latent image. There's nothing you can put in this. We're going to keep the defaults. We're going to keep it at 512 by 512 with a batch size of 1. That just means we want one image at 512 by 512. We're going to click on our little latent output here, the pink dot, and drag it into our other pink dot up here. So now I've told the generator what we want the image to look like, what we don't want the image to look like, and the size it needs to be. Next, we need to, so we've filled in all of our input input nodes here, right? So now we need to think about the output. The output is a latent. That just means it's a bunch of numbers, and we need to convert those numbers into images. The way to do that is we're going to double click over here, and we're going to type in VAE decode. So double click in the Comfy grid and search for VAE, and then you're going to click on decode. And you'll see here we have a pink latent to a pink input, right? So pink output to the pink input. And it turns out we need a red thing. Where's the red thing coming from? Well, it turns out our model has a red thing built into it. So we're going to drag our red VAE from the model all the way over to the VAE to decode. Variational autoencoder. Basically, these are massive compression models. A variational autoencoder includes both the compression system as well as the uncompression system. So when we run our case sampler generates a bunch of numbers. And those numbers are basically a compression system of what the image should look like. So we generate our little compressed model number thing, and then our decoder converts that back to an image.
Is there a way to peek it, like what that looks like?
It's basically a million numbers.
Okay.
It's unintelligible to any of us. But yes, you could look at it, I guess, if you wanted to. So we've now plugged these in, right? We've got our pink node and our red node for inputs are filled out. Now we want to give our output here. So we're going to give an output to an image. To preview an image, we want to double click over here again, and we're going to type in preview. We're looking for a preview image. Click on preview image, and it turns out that that is a blue dot, and we only have one blue dot output, one blue dot input. We have basically just rebuilt what the initial thing was when you open Comfy for the first time is. Now, there's one other thing I want to change here. Don't worry about this too much, but under our case sampler, we want to change the steps to 11. So just click in this section where it said 20 and change that to 11. We want to click on the CFG. Okay, let me zoom in a little bit more. Sorry, I realize this is like very far out. So let me zoom in here. Whoops. So in the case sampler, change the steps to 11. Change the CFG to 2.0. Change the sampler name to LCM. So you can click in there and then type LCM. So just change your case sampler settings to this. So the only thing we changed here are steps, CFG, and sampler name. So it goes 11, 2.0, LCM. So remember how I said we're using an LCM model, and an LCM model generates stuff faster? Faster means less steps. So steps are how long it takes to generate the image, meaning it's sort of a recursive process. If you look at a tutorial for someone who does this making images, their steps might be set to 60 or 80, and that's because it generates better quality images. This model we're going to use requires less steps, meaning it will generate faster. So we're going to set it to 11 steps. CFG is what stands for context-free guidance. I could barely tell you what all that means. All people know is that for LCM models, we need a lower CFG score. So we're going to use 2.0 instead of 8.0. And the sampler name is, because we're using an LCM model, we need to use an LCM sampler. Yeah.
The whole that we were provided with in one country when we started at this like long seed number.
Yep.
I don't know what seed refers to.
Yeah, so seeds are see, I always struggle with explaining random seeds. So this is a randomization value, meaning it randomizes our number system inside of our model. A seed controls that random. So it's not actually random, it is like a fixed random. So seed determines how fixed that randomization system is. Basically what that means is if you always use the exact same seed value, you will always get out the exact same image. That's the only thing you need to worry about. So if you're like, I don't like this image, I want a different image, change your seed value and you'll get a different image out. Yeah. Yeah. There's actually some problems with that because GPUs have their own randomization system inside of them. So if we were to use all the same different GPUs, we would get different systems out, but like it's minor.
Explain more about the control trajectory, like.
Yeah. Okay. So actually, that's a great example. So let's actually click on this, and you see we've got the example of fixed, increment, decrement, or randomize. By default, it's set to randomize. Let's set it to fixed. So what fixed means for us is it's never going to change, meaning every time we hit Q prompt, it will keep the same seed value. If we change this to increment, it means every time we hit Q prompt, our number will update. So we'll add 1 to it. So our seed will go from 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Decrement's the opposite. It'll go from 0 to -1 to -2 to -3, whatever. Randomize will just completely randomize it every time. I think fixed is actually probably a good value. Let's start with that. So let's set it to fixed, and then we can just set our seed value to 0. That's fine.
And if seeds that are like, if they're near each other, so 0 and 1 could be, so does it really matter?
It doesn't really matter, no. The only reason it matters is that you can save all these values at basically when you make an image, it saves all the metadata to your image. So you could actually open that image and it would tell you what seed value was used to generate that.
Yeah.
So it's helpful to remember. It's like you can, if you're like, I like that image, but something was a little off with it. What seed value did I use? Can I tweak another parameter and change it that way? Yeah. Okay. So we've now spent 15 minutes just rebuilding what we already had. Let's hit Q prompt and just make sure that it generates an image for us. And you'll see here that we've got our load checkpoint. So see how it's green around it? That means that this is the node that's running right now. So it took a little bit of time to run that prompt, and then it quickly ran through everything else. And if we look at this, we see what our image is, and we can zoom in and see our image. I asked for a dog riding a dolphin, but I didn't really get a dog. I got just a dolphin. You got a dog? Okay, your seed value must be different than mine. That's fine. Oh, interesting. Okay. Okay. Yes. That sounds pretty common. Okay. So we got an image. Great. We could have done that without doing all this extra work. Let's talk about how to actually generate a video now. So to generate a video, what we need to actually do is we need to import a new model. And we're not going to do that by changing this value. We're actually going to add a whole set of nodes for us. We're going to import a model system called animate diff. And what animate diff allows us to do is it's going to generate multiple images. And it's actually going to basically like do an interpolation or like sort of like be able to morph between those images. So let's look at how to build that pipeline. So we're going to grab all of our nodes from sort of here. Let's see if we can do this. So we're going to grab the checkpoint you can like hold down the shift key to select multiple nodes. So you're gonna grab all 3 of these nodes. And sorry, zooming in and out. I think if you're on a Mac, you can like pinch in and out to zoom in and out. So we're like all these nodes, and we're just gonna stretch. Whoop, that didn't work. Of course, I can't actually do this. Let's see, shift, 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 shift. Hold shift while you do it. Okay. There we go. Okay, cool. We're just gonna stretch all this out. We're gonna fill in some stuff right here in the middle. We're gonna add a second node called animate diff, and I'll walk us through that process just now. Just make sure you've like made a bunch of space for yourself. This is kind of the fun or the lack of fun of these node systems, is just moving things around. Okay, so in here, we're gonna double click and we're gonna type in animate diff, D-I-F-F. And that didn't even pull up what I wanted. So we're gonna also add legacy. Nope. Okay. Let me figure out how we find this legacy. Okay, cool. Let's figure out what we want to find. So we want to animate. Okay, so type in animate and then scroll down until you find this thing called animate diff loader legacy. Yeah, so keep scrolling down in that little search section and you'll find one that says animate diff loader legacy. So we'll click on that and we'll open this. And if we zoom into this guy, we'll see we've got a bunch of other things we need to plug in. We'll connect all these in just a minute. The thing we want to look at now is see where it says model name. Click on that. And let's type in LCM into our search bar here. And we'll see we've got only one option. And in fact, for most of us, it's probably already been auto-selected. One of the annoying things about the Stable Diffusion setup is that your base model influences all of your ladle models. So because we're using a base model that is called an LCM model, all of our other models have to be LCM models too. And that leads to some problems because not everyone has built custom stuff for LCM models, whatever. In this case, we at least have 2 models that work on LCM, so we can use these. So this is going to load in our animate diff. And remember, this model, all it does is it learns to take 2 images and basically morph between 2 images. That's all animate diff does, but that allows us to make animations essentially. So we've now selected the right model for us here. Actually, let's click on the beta schedule, which is the selection right underneath it, and select LCM square root linear. Don't ask me what that means. I just know that's the one you have to select for that. All right, and then we'll leave everything else as is. So you'll see that there's one input that is purple and one input that is output purple, right? So as I mentioned, this is where we need to sort of make sure that we're doing things in the right order. What we're going to do is we're actually just going to stick this in the middle of our model flow, right? So if you see over here, we've got our model here all the way on the left. So let's just click on that and then drag this over to this model. And then let's drag the output of the model back to this model. And you'll notice that when we did that, it deleted that other line. So you're going from the model over here that says load checkpoint. You're clicking on the model there and dragging that into the animate diff node. And then you're taking the model output from the animate diff node and plugging that into the model of the K sampler. Model inputs can only take one input. Okay, I gotta mute somebody over here. Okay, cool. So by doing this, all we're saying is take our base model, but then add this other model on top of it. And that's going to allow us to do animations. Now, there's a couple other things we need to change here. First thing we're gonna do is we're gonna click on the context options. So we're gonna drag this out, and then if you Shift Option and unclick, you'll see you have context options. A couple different things here. We're gonna click looped uniform. This allows us to do a looped video, which is kind of nice. So we're just gonna do that. And you'll see that that gives us this node here. And the thing that's kind of annoying about Comfy is sometimes you'll be plugged into something and the node will like wrap under your node, or the spaghetti will wrap under your node. You'll be kind of confused about where it is. But just know it's connected. You can see it's green there. We're going to leave all of these options as is for now, but we'll look at what they do in just a minute. And the other thing we want to do is we want to drag out a node from our sample settings here. So click on sample settings, Shift Option click, and then unclick everything, and then choose sample settings. And we'll drag this one down here. And the only thing we want to change here is under noise type, set that to empty. Again, I don't know exactly what it does. I just know that's what you need to do. Yeah, so for sample settings, you need to do Shift Option click. Empty. Yep. Yeah. Yeah, of course. Yep. So just say empty for noise type. I think it was set to default. Just set it to empty. Yep. Okay. We're almost there. The last thing we want to do is we want to change how many frames. Like right now, we're only generating one image, right? You can't generate an animation from one image. So we need to tell the model, hey, we actually want to generate more than one image. The way to do that is we're going to go back over to our empty latent image here, and we're going to change this value to a different number. Animate diff only works with at least 16 frames. So animate diff requires at least a 16 frame animation. So we're going to type in 16 here. So our batch size is now going to be 16. That means it's going to generate 16 frames for us. Now, the other problem we have is our output here is only a preview image. We need to make that a video, right? Like we're only going to look at a single image. We want to see a video. So what we're going to do is we're going to click on the preview image, and we're going to hit delete and delete that guy. And then we're going to double click on this space here again, and we're going to type in VHS. And that pulls up this thing called Video Combine. So we're going to choose Video Combine. Why is it not called Video Preview? Because whoever decided to make this node decided to call it Video Combine, and there are no standards for how nodes are named. This is the fun of ComfyUI, is it is impossible to know what nodes are supposed to be named. So we're going to select Video Combine, and you'll see the input here is an image. And guess what? Our VAE decode is also an image. So we're just going to drag our VAE decode image into images. You might say, well, this says image and this says images. It's because these models don't know how many images they're producing. So it just says the output is image, but it's actually going to generate 16 frames for us, or 16 images. This Video Combine tool is then going to convert that to a video or an animation for us. In Video Combine here, we have a frame rate. I think it's fine to set it at 8. That'll be pretty slow. But since we only have 16 frames, we don't want this thing to speed by. So let's leave it at 8. There is a format here. You can make a GIF very easily using these tools. I actually prefer to make a little MP4 video. So if we click on the format here and we select video H264-MP4, that'll create a little video for us. And we can leave the rest of this as is for now. Yep. Cool. And at this point, we are now finally set up here. So let's go ahead and hit Q prompt. And what will probably happen is we'll pause for a little bit here as we load in our new model. Remember, we haven't changed our other model, meaning it's been cached, so it loads in very quickly. This one will take a little bit more time to load. So let's go ahead and hit Q prompt.
In the case sampler, does the noise need, the seed value need to be randomized or fixed?
It doesn't matter. No.
Looks like rain.
Let's see if maybe your settings are incorrect. Go to case sampler for me.
I said a badger eating.
Oh, your steps should be 11, not 1. There you go. That's what it is.
Okay. I need to
Yep.
find that quickly. I knew it was like a little mistake.
Yeah, go ahead, try it again. Let's see if that works better.
Well, I never saw my original image, so we'll see what happens.
Yeah.
Okay.
Try it again. Hit Q prompt again. Where is that happening? Maybe in your prompt. Let's see if there's a scroll down to there. No. I think you're okay. Let's scroll over to the right a little bit. Somewhere in here we've got a wrong value, and I don't know where that is. Okay. Let's look at it after.
Okay,
I don't.
okay.
Yeah, I don't know. No, it's fine. No, there's probably something going on there that I don't know about. Yeah, cool. Let's say the video if you close it. No, let me show if you want. So if anyone wants to close stuff right now, let me show you how to save it. So to save your workflow right now, you're gonna come over here. You're gonna click save, and you're gonna save out your workflow. Save it as something that's, I don't know, a name for you. Like, we can call it animate diff. And then hit OK. And then you're going to save it to wherever you want in your computer. Yeah, it'll save as a JSON. That's fine. Yep. If you install new nodes, you need to restart your system in order to use those new nodes. So all that does is restart the Comfy instance. I don't think you'll lose anything when you do that, but it is a bit of a challenge. So maybe save your work before just to be safe. Did everyone get at least a weird dog? Yeah. So that's probably because if we're all using the same seed. So hi, HY, the save is over here on the right. Little save button here.
Like for me, I have a smaller screen, so I just zoom out and go to see the save button.
Okay. Oh, that's helpful to know. Okay. Yeah. So we can change our seed value, change your seed value to something completely different from me. Like I'll set mine to 100, you set yours to 1,000 or something else. And then let's all generate this again. Oh, interesting. Now I'm getting the same error you are. What's happening there? Oh, interesting. Cool. We crashed the system.
If you while you're like doing a flow,
It'll just reload the exact same screen.
Okay.
It's just a virtual machine behind the scenes, so it's probably just that. If we go to runcomfy.com, are we looking okay here? Let's see. Let me see if I can start another session. Oh, no, it looks like I can't start multiple sessions. Let's try my machine, open. Cool, we may have all just flooded their system enough to crash it. Let me think if I have another way to open another Comfy system, to at least show us what's going on next. Well, we at least generated our first animation, so we completed the point of this session, but there's a lot more I wanted to show.
Save.
So the video is saved to Comfy. One of the nice, or sorry, the video is saved to runcomfy. One of the nice things that runcomfy does is it persists all of your storage for like as long as you run the system, I think. I don't know when they purge your files. So your files should still be there. And they are usually in this folder system, but it looks like our folder system is also broken right now. Cool.
Hi, sorry, quick question. So how to save the file and the things we're doing on the runcomfy?
Yeah, I would love to show you that. I think it's a little, because we just broke their system, it's not going to be possible for me to show that now. There is a way to access all your files. Basically, these videos are saved to your Comfy instance, and you can then download them from there. And that was what I was going to show next, but it looks like we just crashed everything. So I'm gonna have to record a separate video for us to sort of walk through that process for anyone interested. It's actually never happened to me on runcomfy before, so clearly like 50 of us using it was enough. Helpful for me to know when I teach my classes. Yeah. Let me see if there's another way I can pull up a Comfy instance really quickly. So run diffusion. See if run diffusion uses Comfy at all. Trial. Here we go. All right, cool. So there is another thing. I guess you're just going to watch along at this point. There's another tool called Run Diffusion that also allows you to run these GPU things in the cloud. I'm going to run a, no, don't do this. It's, yeah. I'm just going to set this up and run it myself and see how this works. Yeah, if you can hit the stop button, that's probably smart. Save yourself some credits. The stop will turn off your machine and it will no longer charge you for time. You can turn it back on, yeah. The only thing, well, I saved that workflow, so I'll send everyone the workflow that we just made. So at least you have it that way. But yeah, you would lose your workflow essentially when you hit stop as well.
And ComfyUI, if you run it locally, it's the same like interface. It's all web interface. That's just running locally. Yep, exactly. Yeah. And you can load in the exact same workflows, like that sort of thing. It's all the exact same. The only thing that's different between runcomfy is that file browser, which gives you access to your files from that system. But otherwise, if you were running locally, you would have your files there. I'm going to upload the workflow that we just made, just so people have it, to the Slack channel here. So we've got it at least. Yep, of course. Yeah, so the load is the exact opposite. So hopefully once I've got Run Diffusion here, we're working, I can show people how this works. It just looks like it's setting everything up right now. This is just a different service.
This is just a different service. So this is called Run Diffusion instead of runcomfy. I don't know if it's the same people or just using the same name. So I'm just using their service instead. It actually looks like it's the exact same thing. I bet I wouldn't be surprised if it's the same people, although I would be surprised why this isn't crashing. But we'll see. Can I hide this? There we go. Cool. So I put that JSON file on the Slack channel. If you just download that, what you can then do is when you open Comfy again, you can go ahead and hit load. And then you'll just pick that JSON file again. and you hit open, and it's going to open that exact same workflow. Now, I wonder if I hit run, if it's going to give me errors because it doesn't have the same thing installed, but let's see. Yep. So runcomfy comes pre-installed with all the models and all the files we need. This run diffusion system does not. So in order to do this, I would need to go install all the models. I would need to go install the right nodes, and it's a mess. This is why I prefer runcomfy if it wouldn't crash on me like it just did with our class, because it comes pre-installed with everything you're going to need to really like use it very quickly. So that's the downside, but you can see you can just load in your workflow and it loads in all these pieces. But as I mentioned, just because it loads in the workflow doesn't mean it loads in the actual model files, right? Or anything else. So you still have to go install those. There are some nice tools within Comfy to help install that stuff. So for example, if you go over to Manager and you click on Manager, there is a Install Models button. And we can see if this LCM model is here. So let me just type in LCM and hit search. And you'll see there are some LCM models, but that photon one I was looking for is not here. So it means I have to go find the model on the internet, download it, and upload it to the system. It's a pain in the ass. It's doable, but it's going to take me 30 minutes, an hour to download a big file, upload a big file, all that sort of stuff. So it's nice if that sort of thing is already installed. Well, we've got a little bit more time here. Maybe I can also show you what happens when you download someone else's workflow and try to install it, and maybe the nodes that they're looking for are not available yet. So let's go back to my slides here and let's click on this. And we're going to open up. So tomorrow night, the folks from Eden are going to be presenting how to use their tool to generate video. The funny thing about their tool is under the hood, it's all using Comfy. And they've open sourced their Comfy workflows. So you can actually just download their workflows. I've done a lot of work with the Eden folks recently and actually like their tool. It's a nice front end that kind of obfuscates a lot of this stuff and makes it really easy to use. But often I will save myself some money because they have their own paid platform and use their workflows once I sort of know what I want to do. So you can go ahead and grab their workflows. If you go to this website, it's on GitHub. And you'll see that they have a bunch of different workflows here. So I know the one that I want is their vid to vid. So I'll click on this and I'll just hit download. And I'm going to save this as vid to vid Eden.json. And then what we can do is then we can load this in here again. So we're just going to hit load. And then we'll hit load. You don't need to worry about this. I'll send it to you, but just know it's available to you. But it's the regular vid to vid one without anything else on it. Yeah. So when you load in their workflow, you'll see you get a lot of these red boxes. These red boxes are because they're nodes that this company has made themselves or have installed from elsewhere that are not yet installed in the system. And you can see, it tells you like, hey, I'm missing all these nodes. This is a very, very common thing. You're going to download someone's workflow and you're like, great, I'm going to get started. I'm going to generate a video in 5 minutes. And you open it and there are like 50 missing nodes. And you're like, crap, this is going to take me forever. And it will take you a while. The way to fix this, or the easiest way to get started, is to just hit close here and then go to manager. And then you'll see this thing that says install missing custom nodes. So click that. And it's going to say, okay, here are the nodes that I think you need to install. Now, this is where there is a potential security problem. If you don't know this company, you don't know who made this workflow, it could be asking you to install that one bad node that existed for a week. 9 times out of 10, 99 times out of 100, you're going to be fine, and this will not be an issue. But this is, you do kind of want to be careful about installing just random nodes willy-nilly.
If you're installing them on like, does it
No,
matter?
that's another reason to use that system.
Okay.
You're going to at most like work their system and not yours. So yeah, exactly. Yeah. So with all these nodes here, you can now click one by one install. The UI for this sucks. Basically, you're gonna hit install and it's gonna tell you, it's just like gonna work until it can't. And then it's gonna refresh and you'll see like this. You'll one by one want to install each one of these.
If we were using ComfyUI, would we run into all these installations?
Sorry, say it again.
You were using run for Comfy?
Oh yeah, yeah. runcomfy probably will have some of these installed, but not all of them. So you'll still need to install some of them yourself. The nice thing again about Comfy or runcomfy is that when you install stuff, it stays persisted across all of your machines. So if you install it once, it's always going to be there, which is really nice because other systems, as soon as you stop the machine, it's gone and you have to go and reinstall it again. So it's kind of nice that they have that set up that way. So now you'll also see that when you've installed all this, then you need to restart the machine and you'll just click this restart button and you'll hit OK. And then I think you'll need to refresh your browser as well. And you'll see we still have an error message. And this is, oh man, this is like getting in the weeds. This is because the particular people that made this node rebuilt their entire node system about 3 months ago. And they have broken every pre-existing workflow. I have a fix for this. I'm actually just going to upload the fixed version so everyone has that. But you actually have to go in and replace nodes and other shit. It's really annoying. But essentially, this is a really wonderful workflow. We can actually look at this and now kind of understand what's going on, right? So if we scroll all the way over here to the right or to the left here, man, my direction's really messed up today. This is what's called an inputs. So we can see here that there is a place to upload a video. There are places to upload 2 images and then set a whole bunch of other settings here. This is what's called a vid to vid workflow. And actually, I can show you what it looks like in Eden itself. If you want to learn all the things you want to learn about this, this is the session that's tomorrow, I believe between 6 and 8. Josh is going to show you how to use their tools. So I will just show you what the output looks like. This is what's called vid to vid. And they have a tool that allows you to, let's pick this one and let's look at it, how it works. Oops. So if we go over here and don't worry about what I'm doing, just know that this is what I'm going to show you. So vid to vid allows you to upload a single image. So upload a mushroom and then a video. And this video, I think is, let me just see if I can copy this path and show you what it looks like. So I have a video that looks like this. And I want to upload a image that looks like a mushroom. So I want to convert my flower to a mushroom. And using Eden, which basically uses Comfy under the hood, you're able to generate a video that basically does what we call style transfer, or transfers the style from one image to your video. I can run this in Eden just to show you what it looks like. This costs, I don't know, a cent to generate, or a couple cents, probably like 25 cents to generate in Eden. But if I have my whole Comfy workflow set up, I can generate that in Comfy at no charge or the charge it costs to run the machine. So, you know, Eden has like a front end that then plugs into Comfy behind the scenes, which is cool. Like the Eden folks have actually built other workflows custom, and they offer those as open source tools as well. So it's kind of nice, like for someone like me who wants to do sort of both, I can sort of prototype here in Eden and then bring it into Comfy and like generate a ton of different videos using those settings. But because that workflow is still kind of broken, I can't really show you what it looks like. I know how to fix it. It takes a couple more minutes than I think we've got time left for the rest of this session.
So you can, when you're confident, you can take aspects of one image to apply to another image. I mean,
Yep. Yeah. And what it's using is, if we look at, while this runs in the background, I'll show you what it looks like. So what it's doing is, and sorry, this Zoom thing is always in the way. So in the setup, we've got all of our inputs here, right? So this is where we'd upload our video, our images. We do some settings around what resolution we want the output video to be. There's then this whole section here called what's called an IP adapter. An IP adapters basically look at the image you upload and convert the image into like a machine readable language. In some cases, what this does, it actually provides a prompt for us. So we upload an image and we get a prompt back. And this actually plugs that prompt then back into our overall prompts. There's also a tool, I don't know if they're using it. Yeah, there's also a thing called IP adapter, which does not make a prompt, but it makes machine readable code to understand how to interpret this image into the system. This is a really, really complicated workflow. If you zoom out, you'll see how complicated it is. There's the input here. There is this text prompt creator using your image upload. Then there is this IP adapter system, which converts your image into a language that the machine can read. Then there is also this other system, which is called control net, which I was hoping to get to today, but unfortunately we won't get to it. Control nets take aspects of your video you uploaded and are able to basically take the shapes from that video and maintain the shapes as you generate your next image. So what this will do is it will take the shapes of my flowers, apply a certain aspect of the mushrooms over top of it, and give you sort of a blend of the two, a composite of the two, in a way that you can't really do with pixel to pixel generation. And that's what's really cool about these tools. But you can see this whole workflow, it's complex. This would, if we had a 3-hour class, it could probably generate this whole thing for us in a 3-hour class. But because they already built it for us, you can just download it and use theirs. Now there's a problem here there's one node that we need to fix, which I've already fixed in other places that I'll upload for us to use if you want to try it. But this is the power of these tools. Anyone can make a little, a workflow for us. We can then download that workflow. And if we install the right nodes and install the right models, we can then use it ourselves. Question is, would you rather just use Eden's tool or would you want to install this yourself? For me, I made a video a couple weeks ago where I was generating like hundreds and thousands of these video clips. It was easier for me to do that locally on my own system than it was to do it through Eden, where it would have cost me $100, So again, it just it's the trade-off of, do you want to do it yourself and save yourself some money, or do you want to just use someone else's system and pay whatever cost they have for it? So here's actually the output of this video. The audio is coming from the video source. I'm skipping it because I don't want to just hear it over and over again. I spent the past month listening to this exact same song over and over and over again. And I'm just sort of like, okay, I can't listen to this anymore. The song is not controlling anything now. So you can see here on the right what the video input looks like. So the input video was this material. The image I sent it was this image of a mushroom. And the output in total was this.
Just from a copyright perspective, this would fall into fair use.
Exactly. Yep.
Where are you finding models? Like, where are you learning about the workflows? Like,
oh man. Okay, I'm going to show you a website, and I immediately apologize for how shitty this website is. There's a website called civet.ai. Civet, or now it's actually called civetai.com. It used to be civet.ai. So it's civetai.com. And then you can click on models. And immediately I have to apologize because it's all women in various amounts of clothing. But this is where you can find models. And there are a lot of good models in here, and there are a lot of very shitty, sketchy, scary models in here. But I would say if you look through the list of models that are available in runcomfy, you can take the name and search the name, and they likely will show up on here. This tends to be where people store models. These are all community trained models, meaning people made their own models and stored them here. And Civetai allows you to sort of save all that data. There's also, if you're logged in, there is a way to filter. You can filter out all of the not safe for work images, which I would definitely recommend on this site. But you'll see here, there are a ton of different models. The challenge is because we're using an LCM model, we need to make sure we also find LCM models here. And not all these are LCM models. One of the biggest challenges with Stable Diffusion is there's Stable Diffusion 1.5 models, there's Stable Diffusion 2 models, there's Stable Diffusion 3 models, there's Stable Diffusion XL models. There are LCM models now. And if you're going to do animations, your base model has to match with your animation model. And there are not many animation models for all these different versions of things. So in general, for animate diff, you want a SD 1.5 model because animate diff, the models themselves are made for 1.5.
But that's only gated by us wanting to choose the cheaper, quicker.
Yes,
So we
yes.
just do a different one and like still load whatever.
Yes, so you could use a 1.5 model, that is a general 1.5 model, and then use a regular animate diff 1.5 model, and it'll be a little bit slower, and you'll have more options for image generation, that sort of thing.
Are there communities online that you learn about all these different?
Yes. So actually, that's a great point. With 5 minutes left, let me show you. So the links here are probably some of the best places to go find things. The two things I recommend the most for next steps beyond my classes or beyond the other sessions that are happening here at ITP Camp are this guy Pers. Pers is awesome. He has a YouTube channel where he just like shows endless comfy flows. Like he will do like 2-hour live streams where he'll just walk through building an entire flow from scratch. Definitely like one of the best people I think to follow if you are interested in this stuff. He has a Discord where he also, any workflow he makes, he will then share with people. I think you have to pay for his Patreon now to get those access to those workflows, but you also follow along with his videos and just build it yourself. The other one, which is the best one for anything animation related, is Banodoko. This is a Discord that, let me just pull up the Discord here. If you go to their, what is it? It's AD resources. This is animate diff _ resources. These folks are like the best. Like this is where everyone goes to like find stuff. They just have a bunch of workflows that are already made by people. And you'll see some of them were posted literally a couple hours ago. Some of them were posted 4 days ago. Pers posts a lot of his workflows here as well. And you can download these workflows. And I would say, quite honestly, I would trust these people. You know, they're generally people who are often testing stuff out and making sure that things are safe as well. So this is probably the best place if you're really interested in this stuff to go. And you'll see there's a ton of different workflows. Some of these I will say get very in the weeds, like they're meant to only do anime for this character for this thing. So you have to be a little bit aware that some of these are very narrow use cases and others of them are a little bit broader and wider. But I'd probably say like these are the 2 best resources for video and animation stuff.
And does Comfy, is it primarily, or is it only for stage distribution models, or does it do other model generation? Like
there are some models, there are some open, it only works with open source models, right? So you can't use Midjourney with this, you can't use DALL-E with this.
But is it for like image generation?
Yes. Yeah. Some people are extending it to language models, but that's pretty rare. I wouldn't say there's a lot of use cases for this sort of crazy complex system for language models. With image models and especially video models, it's really because you're adding in these layers of like control and like, you know, the IP adapter stuff. Like that's really why this sort of these workflows really make sense. Because if I just pull up this workflow again, to do this type of workflow in a non-comfy environment is a really big pain in the ass, because most systems do not support just plugging and playing with all these different models all at once. Like Auto 1111 is one of the few ones that kind of does, but it forces you into really strict structures around how you build things. Because of this input-output system within Comfy, it allows you a much better flexibility to sort of do these things in different orders. One of the things we didn't really talk about is that the model flow and the conditioning flow are order dependent. Meaning if you put a certain conditioning before another conditioning, that can affect the output. And that's really hard to control in other systems where you don't have an input output like this. So, you know, in ControlNet, where you could say, take a dancer and you could say, I want to take a depth mask of their video, and I want to take their actual positioning, their body positions, and I want to combine those 2 together as a part of the conditioning flow. The order of operations matters. In other systems, that's really hard to control, but in Comfy, that's actually easy to control because you can literally like swap things in and out and just plug and play in different orders. You can even test it that way. Yeah. It's made, but it's buried in one of these Discords, or it's buried in one of Pers's videos. Like with all this stuff, it's moving so fast, the documentation literally would be out of date the day they finish it. And that's like one of the biggest frustrations with these tools. And it's why a community like Bonodoko or someone like PERS is really important because they're the people that have actually learned what actually matters and what order and that sort of thing. Because honestly, they're spending 12 hours a day using these tools. I have to say, like, as someone who's done a lot with AI over the past 5 to 7 years, this stuff is moving so fast that even I can barely keep up at this point. And it's really challenging as all this stuff, like new models get released every day, new tools get released every day. It's pretty challenging to keep up with all this stuff. And that's where some of these other resources are really helpful for that.
By how much robust your machine.
You're limited by how many hours you sleep a night, how many GPUs you have, who you know in the community that is doing beta stuff that you don't have access to yet. Like, yeah, there's lots of things. Like, I don't know if anyone's played with there's a new text to video model called Luma Labs Dream Machine. You know, it came out over the weekend and like, it was just like flooded with use overnight, but like some people have beta access to it and had already been testing it for the past month, you know?
I feel like I just started playing with that.
Runway just released a new model this morning that I think they've been sitting on because they were waiting for something like Luma Labs to come out and sort of like make them look out of date. They just released a new one this morning. I've known Chris since he was an ITP student. So Runway is great. Runway is closed source. So there's certain things you can't do with it. Like there's certain things that like you can do in Runway and Comfy you can't do with Runway. Yeah, go ahead. Yes. Yep.
Probably draws from this.
Yeah.
What I found difficult sometimes is like if you want to have really like say like I want to have a tilt from left to right.
Yep.
Up. Is there anything which you have been coming across which helps with that?
So Animate Diff has what are, oh man, this gets really in the weeds. Animate Diff has what are called animation LoRa's, which are a plugin that sits on top of Animate Diff. And you can set some of those things to be specifically pan left, pan right, tilt left, tilt right, zoom, like those sort of things. So you can include those. I would say they're like not the best, but they do better than just sort of like willy-nilly kind of like relying on stuff. Runway also has motion controls in it now. I think that'll probably be like the next level that we see with animation stuff, because that's really what people need the most. Like that's general video creation tools. I see it. Thank you guys. Sorry for this sort of chaotic session, but that's how it goes sometimes. Yeah. Yeah, of course. Yeah. The slides are already in the Slack channel. So if you go to our Slack channel, you'll see there's a bunch of stuff there already. Yeah. Yeah. I'll also send out for anyone that RSVP'd, I'll send out the link to the recording as well as the slides. And yeah, I'll send that out to everybody. Make sure you have it.
But so just like as a start, did I hear that right? That you run it mostly on your machine now because it's cheaper and you have a fast machine.
Yeah.
And you have to trust sources, so it helps you to do all of that.
It just sort of depends. I mean, I do a lot of prototyping in Eden because it's like I can do it from my couch while I'm watching TV. And then once I figure out what I want to make, then I like set up a whole workflow and like set up a whole pipeline for it and like set it up on my Linux machine, which is in my studio.